Welcome to Echo Ekoji. I'm Andrea Chapman, and I'm here with my co-host, Joe Gochi. It's amazing to think this is already our 10th podcast of the year. Last month, we took a break to host the Eastern Buddhist League Conference from October 18th to the 20th, which was a tremendous success. The primary goal of both the conference and this podcast is to share the Buddha Dharma with as many people as possible. Joe, what would you like to add about Ekoji?
Thanks, Andrea. Ekoji is part of Buddhist Churches of America, a network of 60 Jodo Shinshu temples across the United States. We cherish the teachings of Amida Buddha and the three Pure Land Sutras as shared by Shinran Shonin, a 13th century Japanese Pure Land Buddhist. We express our gratitude and take refuge in Amida Buddha through the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Our mission is to spread Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, leading us to spiritual fulfillment and a life of gratitude. Now, Andrea, let's introduce our special guests.
We are thrilled to welcome Nori and Ken Nakamura, two of Ekoji's founding members. Before we dive into our conversation, I'd like to mention that Nori and Ken were the first people Molly Kuramoto interviewed when Echo Ekoji debuted as an audio-only podcast 3 years ago. That interview is still available on our YouTube channel and has seen a resurgence in popularity over the last year. This time, we'll explore new topics, and you get to see the Nakamuras on video. Welcome back, Nori and Ken.
Thank you, Andrea and Joe, for having us.
So, Nori, I'm going to begin with you and then Ken. Can you talk about the significance of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism in your personal life?
Well, when I was growing up, we were known as PKs, preacher's kids. And it was, my sister and I were sort of, very annoyed at that because I guess, being the preacher's kids, people expect you to behave yourself and everything. So we felt very confined. But as I grew older and as we got kids, I came to understand how deeply Jodo Shinshu Buddhism has affected my life. And at this point in my life, I am very deeply grateful that I was born into a Buddhist temple family. And also the work that my parents did coming here in 1930 to help spread Buddhism in the U.S. It's a major influence in my life.
I think, as Nori said, the impact on your personal life grows as you get older. When you're really young, it helps you center yourself and become part of your identity. That even as a child, I recognized, because my parents are active in the Seabrook Buddhist Temple. They helped start the temple, and so as I grew up, I always thought of myself as Buddhist. And at that time, it was an ethnic temple. And that also helped form part of my identity as I was growing up. Later on, as you get older, you realize that it's helped shape your perspective of your relationship and the world. You think of it in terms of change, you think of it in terms of interdependence, and you think of really late as you continue to get older, you realize how much your ego plays into how you view the world. So I think the impact on me personally as I was growing up and becoming older, it increased the impact that it had on me in terms of, I can do it myself, to no, I can't.
I'm sitting here fortunate to have grown up in a community with Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, but not coming from a heritage Buddhist family, also fortunate to have met my wife when we first started teaching. And so I've been around the tradition, and it's wonderful to meet the two of you and to listen to you, because you have the wisdom that I hope I will have someday. I'm an old man, but a young Buddhist. So one of the things that I've noticed about Ekoji is how diverse the Sangha is, and even first-time visitors or attendees. And I want to ask you, is that by chance, or is it something that's intentional, something that Ekoji has really set out to do? And is that diversity important for Ekoji's long-term viability? Ken, how about you first, and then Nori?
I think, we started off as an ethnic temple, but the the tone and the inspiration came from our founding minister, Reverend Suji, and he thought that Jodo Shinshu was not an ethnic thing, not just for Japanese Americans, for Japanese or Asian Americans, but had universal truths applicable to the world and how what was bothering people and it could help. And so he, he was part of the reason of the come as you are, uh,
Yeah.
even before Left Race became popular. And that was sort of the tone that he set for the temple and for our Sangha to follow. And so was it intentional? It was intentional on his part, and we followed his lead, I think. And so he played a really important role, in my opinion.
To add to Ken's comments about folks coming to Ekoji, I think people of various faiths are attracted to Jodo Shinshu Buddhism because it appeals. The teachings appeal to the human nature, not regarding ethnicity, but we as human beings have, desires, wants, ego, and everything. And the Jodo Shinshu teachings help to address that, and then to try to help us lead a life that isn't quite so egotistical and everything. So I think people are coming. It's diverse because it appeals to the humanity of people. But diversity in the temple is really important because we're all humans. We all have we are more alike than anything. Did I answer the question?
Thank
I
you.
just and add one more point to that. Because, I think the really important part of the teachings, for me anyway, is that concept of I am as I am, and I'm encompassed in the Dharma because the wisdom and compassion, and it's non-rejecting. So when I die, there's almost a guarantee, an assurance that I'll be part of that oneness. And I think that's when a Sangha member said, it's amazing how introspective Jodo Shinshu requires of you. And when you start looking at yourself, you come to depend upon that promise of non-rejection. And I think that's part of the support that the temple gives.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Andrea?
So, Ken, as our editor-in-chief of the temple newsletter, the Kalavinka, can you share a little bit with us about the significance of this publication?
I'm not sure how big the readership is, but the way I sort of look at it, you can't force a horse to drink, but you got to provide the water. And when the horse is ready to drink, it'll drink. But if you don't provide the water, the horse is going to die. And so that's how I think of the Kalavinka. One important thing of the Kalavinka, Andrea, It was when we called it the Sangha, which was the forerunner. And we have the important parts of Reverend Sushi's first Dharma message when we opened up Ekoji. And that's where he talks about it's a nice building, but it's only a building if it's not full of people who are centered on the Buddha Dharma. And he talks about he says he describes himself as a farmer in minister's robes. And when he looks out as he's speaking, he sees priests in business clothes. He sees priests dressed as housewives or businesswomen. He sees priests as grandparents. He sees priests as children. That we all carry the Dharma and experience and have lessons to teach. And so I think that set the tone for the temple. And the fact that it was at that time, the Sangha, and we were able to always go back and refer to that publication and what his dream was. And hopefully with the Kalavink will help do that also, to continue on what the temple is about and how it's doing things.
Yeah. And another note for the Kalavinka is that we have the comings and goings, and it tells what the activities that our Sangha members have been doing, so that the Sangha can be informed of our members, and at least they get to know the Sangha members better.
Yeah. And the Kalavinka, by the way, is a mythical bird. Reverend Sushi gave the newsletter its name. He thought Sangha was kind of old and passé. And so we chose Kalavinka. And Kalavinka is a mythical bird in the Pure Land. It's got a long tail, it's got the head of a human, and it constantly sings praises to the Buddha Dharma.
Love it. Well, we're reading the Kalavinka all the way out in Seattle, so keep publishing, and we'll keep reading. There will be a couple of times during the interview where I'll ask questions that I think you may have already answered, but I want to hear maybe a little different twist on it. And in this case, I'm going to refer to my last question. Do you believe that Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, which immigrants brought to this country over 125 years ago, is a spiritual path for all people, or a special path for Japanese American and other Asian Americans? And the reason I ask that is, on the West Coast, our temples are still primarily populated with Japanese Americans. And when visitors come or seekers come, they wonder, I think, at the beginning, is this for me? Or is this for somebody else? Nori, you want to take that one?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Jodo Shinshu is absolutely for everyone. It's, I too experienced that Japaneseness on the West Coast. It was started as a Japanese temple and a place where people got together socially. But I think, over here on the East Coast, we don't have that Japanese population. So many people are interested in Buddhism, and we have to open up and make them feel welcome, because they'll benefit so much from the Buddhist teachings.
I tend to agree that it's a path for everyone. And we've had Sangha members who have left the Ekoji and gone to other temples. There are about 40 some odd different denominations in the DC metropolitan area. And Ekoji's path on the Shin path resonates for some, would resonate for you and Andrea and us. There are others with whom it just doesn't resonate. But that doesn't mean that the person who's on the Zen path or the other Pure Land paths, or even a Theravada path,
yes,
they're just as valid. And I think that's what Reverend Susie was trying to point out. There are other paths equally as valid, maybe even non-Buddhist paths. But we have to understand and appreciate that for me, this works. Maybe for somebody who kicked the tire and didn't find this was it. It doesn't mean that they're lost forever.
Yeah.
They're still searching.
Thank
And
you.
so it's a path that's open for everybody. But whether it resonates with everyone could be a different thing.
Can each of you share some of Ekoji's successes and how they were achieved?
Have the diversity of our Sangha. And again, it comes from, I think, with Reverend Suji setting the tone and the other ministers and temple leaders all along the way, supporting that concept of this Jodo Shinshu path could be for everyone. And we should welcome them that way. So I think there was a tone that the temple was always following. And the Dharma school is another, I think, is a major achievement. It's an active Dharma school. We, as you go up the levels, it goes up to high school, and we have about 20 kids, which for small temples is fairly decent. But it's fairly rigorous, and all the kids, they go through the route. They're able to both explain basic Buddhism and the interpretations that Shinran put on applied to that. They're able to explain. They're able to lead a service. They lead the chanting. Usually, they start off with Gasho to Amida, but by the senior level, they could do lead in the Juseiga. Again, it goes back to Reverend Sushi, and he always made sure that we met every Sunday. Which when he said we're going to meet every Sunday, I looked at him like, "Are you crazy?" And then but he was insistent, and he was insistent upon content. He said, "Too many kids go through Dharma school knowing how to put a wheel of Dharma together on paper, or know how to make folding cranes and stuff, and input and meanings of the cranes. But there's a Buddhism that needs to be taught. And because there are so few Buddhists and Jodo Shinshu Buddhists on the East Coast, we want to make sure our kids can answer the questions." And
Yeah, and another, the fact that the kids learn how to chant Jusege and Basho to Amida is really wonderful, because when Maya and Greg went to the universities, they took with them their little at the Dharma school. They made little butsudans, portable ones. So whenever they had like when our parents passed, they were able to do service on their own in the dorm room, and yeah, so that at least there was that connection. So I think our Dharma school kids are really great. And the first batch of Dharma school kids that he taught, it was a 2-year program, and they had to for the Sangha and the Dharma awards. It was a 2-year program, and those kids had to study really hard because they had several exams and tests. If they didn't pass by a certain number, they had to do it over again. He was the strictest teacher.
And it's embarrassing when your own kids don't pass an exam.
Which has happened.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you both. In addition to attending Sunday services at Ekoji, I know the two of you try to attend as many of the midweek services on Zoom as you can. Can you both share your thoughts about the Dharma Breeze services that are led by Reverend Kurt Rye, who served as Ekoji's resident, virtual, and now supervising minister?
1 week goes by so fast, and Sunday comes, but then you're so busy with different things. It's good to have that moment midweek to kind of, slow down, sit down, and enjoy seeing these people, hearing the Dharma message and hearing, everyone's comments about, what they're going through and how they're relating to the Dharma.
No. And I guess I'd add to that is the discussions that follow afterwards. I've always thought I learned so much just listening to other people, how the Dharma affects them, or how they're affected by it, or how are some of the issues that come up and how people respond. It's a listening exercise also of another ways of looking at the Dharma and how it can affect people and how it can affect me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a really positive experience in which more people were able to tune in.
So, Ken and Nori, what would you say are the greatest challenges facing Ekoji Buddhist Temple and the Buddhist churches of America in the 21st century?
Right.
I think it's a shortage of ministers. This is a serious, serious problem. I don't know the motivation, maybe lack of motivation, or maybe a minister's life they think is difficult. I mean, it's certainly time consuming in a way because, you have Sunday services. If there are special services that you're called to do, if somebody passes away, there's a Makuragyo services. But, it's also a very rewarding job that doesn't probably pay as much as well as other, occupations. But yeah, I don't know how we can solve this shortage of ministers program. But yeah, I think Ekoji, I think there would be more people coming physically to the temple if we had a resident minister. But I think that is a real problem. Of course, funding BCA and Ekoji is a problem too. But I think if there was a real resident minister of Ekoji, that would be so much. Yeah.
I got a feeling Shinran really doesn't care how you approach the altar to do Gassho, whether you step over the left foot and step back with the right, or just walk up there. It's more what's in your heart and your mind as you do Gassho. There are some things that maybe we don't need to emphasize to help welcome a person in. One of the good things we do when we see new members come to Ekoji for the first time in their service, some of the maps go back and ask the new person, you want to go up and do Gassho? We can do it together.
Let me follow up on that. The history of Buddhism is one of adaptation. We see it going from northern India, Tibet, into China, the Korean Peninsula, Japan, and on to the Americas. When you look at Jodo Shinshu Buddhism's services, what traditions and rituals should be preserved, and what might we change in this 21st century?
I asked Dr. Mitchell when he was at the Bell whether the Japanese Americans are hanging on too tightly to tradition and ritual, that it blocks the freedom and openness of people to come in. And he said, no, you got to have culture, some kind of culture. And so he's thinking Japanese American. But I think the important part, and so I sort of disagree with him. And I think the important part is that you may find comfort in the ritual that you grew up with, But as new people come in, don't hang on to the ritual so tightly that you lead people out. And you've got to, um, there may come a time when that ethnic pole is completely gone and the Dharma pole is holding up the big tent. And it doesn't happen if you cling to that ethnic pole. And you've got to be willing to understand that change is going to happen. And you can't stop impermanence. And I think the part of it is that what do we keep now and what do we let go of? One we don't hold on to so tightly. But the other part of it is you recognize the change. And it's a dynamic thing. You ask, what do we change? I'm not sure as our temple becomes more and more diversified, what we can let go of and what the new Sangha brings into it that makes them feel comfortable coming through the doors of Ekoji and staying. But we have to recognize that's going to happen.
Ken and Nori, Ekoji has a very unique and vital relationship with BDK America. Can you please tell us how the two came together and how each has benefited from the partnership?
Okay. Reverend Tsuji met Dr. Numata.
And they became friends, kept relationships going. Mr. Reverend Numata became a very wealthy major industrialist. And Reverend Tsuji came to the United States from Canada, became Director of Buddhist Education with BCA, became the longest serving bishop, American born, with BCA. And together they maintained a friendship. And when Reverend Tsuji's third term was almost over, he talked to Mr. Numata and said, I'd like to start a temple in Washington, D.C.
At the time, we started the Washington, D.C. Dharma School in 1979. And Reverend Bishop Tsuji was very supportive of it. And so he knew that there was a group of us having services. And so when he spoke to Mr. Numata, he said, there's a small group of, Buddhists having a Dharma school there. And so, we could call on them.
They were on the same track about starting at something in Washington, D.C. The bishop called Shig and said he wants to talk to Norman and me and Shig. And so he invited us to dinner and in D.C. at a really expensive hotel. So Norman and I thought, oh, free dinner. Nothing's free when you get to Reverend Bishop Tsuji. And so we went to dinner. He said, I want to start a temple here in Washington, D.C. Do you guys want to be in it? And we had, 7, 8 families at the time. And we said, we can't afford it. And he said, don't worry about the money. And then I said, yeah, but we couldn't, I don't know if the BCA would assign a minister here with 7 or 8 families. And he said, don't worry about that. Do you guys want in? And I said, or Norman, one of us said, we got to talk to the others. And we talked and we expressed concerns to each other. And finally, the decision was, let's go in. So I called Reverend Tsuji and said, we're in. And that dinner was in February. By August, we had a building, we had chairs, we had a parsonage, we had, and we opened the doors. The dedication was a couple months later, but our first service was, I think, on August. Yeah. And that's where the Sangha report about what Reverend Tsuji's dreams were. Mm. That was in the first issue of the Sangha. And so that was the start of it all. And BDK they paid for all of that.
Yeah, they paid for the condo building. They paid for the minister's residence, and yeah.
They even put Reverend Suji on salary um, as a consultant to BDK, and they gave him health care and all those kinds of things. So
we wouldn't be where we are without them.
Yeah.
And still continue to be. Yeah. And here without them. Yeah.
And she could tell you how we're trying to wean ourselves away in terms of our financial dependence, but they continue to provide some financial assistance, and they watch our back in case when we had that flood
upstairs.
Yeah, they helped us out, and so we're able to exist thanks to them from the very beginning. But it's more. It's like that they have people who watch us and how we're doing. They express concerns. You can count on them as friends, like Mr. Yamashita or Brian Nagata. They've known us for a long time. And if they think we're screwing up, they're perfectly willing to tell us, you guys are screwing up on this thing. And so we're getting that kind of benefit from them. And hopefully the benefit that they derive from watching us is how to diversify and make Jodo Shinshu and Buddhism more open to people so that it can expand and we can share the Buddha Dharma more openly with everybody so that they would be welcome. And I think that's probably the mutual benefit we're getting from each other.
So my Japanese is non-existent, but BDK America. So Byokyo, Dendo, Kyokai?
Bukkyo, Dendo, Kyokai.
And what does that mean?
Bukkyo is Buddhist. Dendo is I think it means propagation. Kyokai is company or organization.
Thank you very much. I have numerous publications of theirs in my personal library, and they're just terrific. So, Ken, you can take a rest for a moment because now I have two Nori-only questions. Okay. So, Nori, several of your Sangha members have told me that you are an amazing woman. You have boundless energy. You have a positive attitude that's absolutely infectious. And I want to know, where does that come from? And has Buddhism helped you nurture and cultivate your energy and your attitude?
Well, that's a new one on me. I didn't know that I had that much energy.
Then we see her when we get home. She goes, oh.
Sounds on the sofa. Yeah. Well, I watched my mother as a minister's wife through, from work her tail off, basically. The minister's wife carries a heavy load as a, co-partner. And she was always, as a minister's wife, they at that point, they're usually the president of the Fujinkai, the ladies group.
Yeah.
And with that, of course, there's lots of different personalities. And so she tried to work between all that. And then I'm the youngest of six. So not only was she doing her job as minister's wife, but then mother to six of us. And she was also a Japanese school teacher. So, through all that, she really carried that well. And we all tried to give her massages to, kind of lighten her load and everything. But yeah, through even the time we were in Hawaii basically my mother went to the U.S. in 1931, 32, had all the kids there. And while my father was secretary at the Buddhist mission the headquarters in San Francisco, she also had to teach Japanese school then. And then when my father, he saw the building of the San Francisco Buddhist Temple, after which he was assigned to the Salt Lake Temple, Buddhist Temple. And so while my father was at Salt Lake Buddhist Temple, my mother would make all these goodies, and they were miners, Japanese immigrant miners working in the mine. So my father would, take all these goodies, and also a little, they had those Japanese old movies, and he would go to these mining camps up in Utah and Wyoming, and they were all, bachelor guys, so they would look forward to them. So my mother would make all that, and then after that, he was assigned to Gardena. War broke out, and she was sent to Rower. So with 5 kids in tow, because my father, right after Pearl Harbor, was picked up by the FBI and sent to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to the Justice Department camps. So when the families were starting to get rounded up, she and the kids, my siblings, were sent to Santa Anita racetrack, and from where they were sent to Rower. And so, and then after the war, my father took us all to Japan, and we lived there for about 6 years. And Japan, after the war, Japan was a very poor country, and food was scarce. My brothers remember having to eat only potatoes. So to this day, they do not like potatoes. I think it was like sweet potatoes. Yeah. And so after that, and my father was the eldest in the family. So in Japan, in that particular part in Japan, the oldest son's wife takes care of cooking and everything. So not only were we a family of 8, but we had several aunties still not married. There were 2 brothers who came back from the war, so it was a huge family. So she had to do all that. And during that time, my mother's father passed away, but she couldn't go to the funeral because we were all sick. And then from there, she went to Hawaii, to Wahiawa, Hawaii, where, as a minister's wife, she had to lead the Fujinkai, the ladies group and everything. But through all that, and while we were in Hawaii, every New Year's Eve, we cooked all day long New Year's Eve, because it was her way of thanking the congregation for the new year. So every New Year's Eve after service, we served, all the people. And then so through all that, she never complained. I mean, we all helped, but, she kept up a really good, spirit up and everything. But seeing her work, doing all that work, and for Ken's mom too, as a temple leader in Seabrook, she was doing so much work too. And these 2 ladies had such a, I guess, dedication to the temple to do what they did. And so, I mean, for what I do is, we just, whatever the temple, I mean, we're a small temple. We need all the help we can get. Yeah. So, all of us pitch in to do whatever we can. Yeah. So might as well enjoy it, because, complaining is not going to do any good. So.
Absolutely. Well, you are truly your mother's daughter. So one more question in this round. How long have you and Ken known one another? And as a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, what's the best thing about Ken?
Well, let's see. My father was assigned to Seabrook Buddhist Temple in 1971. And he went in 1971. I went to Seabrook in 1972, because in 1971, my father was kind of, he wasn't that old, I guess. He was in his 60s, huh? Yeah. I mean, when you're younger, 60 look kind of old. But so then, since all of, my siblings were in Japan or California, we figured, one of us should go there just in case anything happens to them. So I was young and single, so, I went there. And then, so I've known him since 1972. And we got married in 73. So we've been married. This is our 51st.
My math doesn't work that
Yeah,
fast.
mine neither. But anyway, we've been married for 51 years. I've known him for 52 years, I guess. And the best thing about him in Buddhist is that, he is very centered in his faith. And he is, he works tirelessly on the coloring. Because sometimes I have to yell at him to go to bed. This is like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, but this is, I mean, sharing the Dharma with everyone is so central to his core, and he tries to live his faith every day. And I have so much that I learned from him because I am very scatterbrained. I'm just doing this, running around like a chicken without a head. But he's very grounded, and then so I try to copy him ways, but old habits are hard to break when you're this old. Um, but yeah, I learn so many things from him every day about him being the Buddhist man that he is. Yeah. And I'm so glad to share him with you.
Oh, thank you for sharing both of you with us. Yes, thanks. Thanks very much. Andrea?
Okay, Ken, it's your turn. What is the best thing about Nori as a Buddhist?
He's got to think hard.
She makes our family hum. You know, she pays the bills, she cooks the food. I try to help in doing things, but she takes, like when we just went to California, she made the car reservation, she made the hotel reservation, she made the reservations for the Japanese American National Museum. She made the appointments so we could stamp the editorial. And she just generally makes the Buddha, makes the family home. And she provides, for sure, the Buddhist foundation that our kids grew up with, that we live with. And she's, I'm not quite sure what would happen if she were not here in terms of how our family, we have family dinner every Sunday evening, almost every Sunday evening. And she prepares that the family gets together. When it's a special time, we'll go before um, the Obutsudan and do a short service. When it's just us sitting around before we eat, Sienna, our 8-year-old granddaughter, she leads everybody in doing gasho. And I think she provides that impetus of how we live. And with how and with that ability to make the family continue and grow and go, we would be in serious problems. I would be in serious trouble.
But to add to that, we're very lucky that we have our son and daughter and family living close by, because we know so many families that grandparents can't see their grandchildren, but we're so lucky that we see them every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a joy when they come in the door, say, "Hi, Grandpa." They call us, he's Baba and I'm Yaya. And I'm glad I'm not Baba because, Baba means old hag in Japanese.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we're at the end of our interview, but we always end our interview by asking the same question. And Nori, I get to ask you, and Andrew will ask Ken. What does Ekoji mean to you?
Ekoji is my source of inspiration. At this age, every day is a gift. When I go to the temple on Sunday to Ekoji for any time, it's always a place where I can say Nembutsu, thank you, and express my gratitude for this life that I'm living, and that we've been able to enjoy life until I mean so far for however long we might have, with family and friends close by. Yeah, it's just my spiritual home. So I'm very thankful that we have people like Andrea and you, Joe, and the other members to support and grow the temple. So I thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Nori. And Ken, what does Ekoji mean to you?
Pretty much what Nori said, a spiritual home. We have a Butsudan in our house, um, and both of us, as we were growing up, had Butsudans, but the temple is sort of the base for our spirituality, and it's a spirituality in terms of the Dharma that we hear when we go to the temple, the friends who are part of our Sangha that we see, and we can just exchange gossip and talk um, and provide each other with strength. And a, it's a place where we come together, feel comfortable, and even as it changes, it doesn't make us feel alienated, that we're seeing it, we're part of it, and we're always welcome, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I guess it's our spiritual grounding, and it's where we can go to our own Butsudan at home and do gasho. We can go do a shoko and gasho at the temple, and it also reinforces that spirituality that we have. I guess that's about it.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Echo Ekoji. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram for the latest updates. For more resources, visit ekoji.org, BuddhistChurchesOfAmerica.org, and Buddhist Temples of Canada at bcc.ca. You can also discover a wealth of materials from Buddhist texts to engaging comic books for kids at bdkamerica.org. Ekoji's mission is to foster global unity within the Sangha through our gatherings and streaming services. A big thank you to Ken and Nori Nakamura for sharing their insights today. Please join us for a Sunday or Wednesday service or Dharma exchange. You can find more information at ekoji.org. I'm Andrea Chapman with Joe Gochi. Thank you for your support. Namo Amida Butsu.
Butsu.
Oh my God.